voters are at the polls for the New York primary elections. Here in the southern tier in western New York, there are two unique elections on the ballot for some. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Rachel Knapp is breaking down who you'll see on the ballot if you plan to vote today.
Some voters will look at two congressional elections, the first a special election and the second a Republican primary.
Well, both races are important because this is a sitting member of the House of Representatives, and they certainly have work to do. And of course, one of the big parts of what the House does during the fall part of the term is they usually consider the budget. That's the money. And certainly you want somebody there who can bring things home for the district, or at least make sure it's not going somewhere else instead of the 23rd.
After Republican Representative Tom Reed resigned from his House seat a few months ago for a job in the private sector, voters will choose either Joseph Sempolinski, who is running on the Conservative and Republican ballot, or Max Della Pia on the Democratic and Working Families ballot to fill that seat for the next few months. And for Republicans, they'll have another congressional race. Nick Langworthy and Carl Palladino are going head-to-head to secure the Republican nomination for November's elections. Political analysts we spoke with say it's tough to tell who will come out on top for this Republican primary election because they haven't seen any real reliable polling for this race.
It really is going to come down to, in a special election and in a primary election in the middle of August, who can really turn out their voters in the heat of summer and convince them that now is the time to go vote, even though they're not used to voting at that time.
The winner of that Republican primary will face Democrat Max Della Pia in November for that 2-year congressional House seat. According to some political scientists, some polls are showing for this November's election a 12-point lead for the Republicans, meaning that they predict that the Republicans will hold on to the seat in November. At the Capitol, Rachel Knapp reporting.
Rachel, thank you. During early voting, which kicked off about a week ago, over 1,600 voters took to the polls here in Chautauqua County as part of the special election. Meanwhile, over 580 participated in the primary. I spoke to Chautauqua County election commissioners Brian Abram and Luz Torres earlier today about the vote, which is taking place right now, and some of the big questions that have been coming up. Joining me now on the broadcast are the Chautauqua County Election Commissioners, Brian Abram and Luz Torres, to talk more about today's primary and special election vote. Brian and Luz, thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Oh, thank you for having us.
First, I know a major aspect of today seems to be the fact that we do have two separate elections which are taking place at the same time. Could you please refresh our viewers a little bit on this process and why some are receiving two ballots today?
Well, everybody's available to vote. All 80,000 registered voters here in Chautauqua County will get one ballot. But if you are a registered Republican, you will be issued two ballots. The reason being is there's two separate elections going on the same day. One is a special election to fill the term for the 23rd Congressional District, and the other is a primary, which we know in New York State they're closed. Primary elections only can be carried out by the party themselves and the people who are registered in that party. And the Republicans are holding one today to choose between two candidates to see who will be on the ballot in November on the Republican line.
Now, I know we were talking earlier before the broadcast this morning that there has been a little bit of confusion from folks. How has that been relating? I know even some of your poll workers are trying to get used to this aspect of having two of these elections at the same time.
Well, over the course of all the time we've been voting, everybody is one man, one vote kind of situation, and that's been drummed into our heads forever. So to completely change the dynamic and have a certain segment getting two and another group not, it brings confusion. As long as everybody understands that's the way it is set up and that's the mission that we've been given to carry out. So we trying to educate everybody walking in the door that it is the Republicans who are making two different choices. And the rest of the voters get only one choice. Again, putting a primary together brings out the fact that only one segment is going to get those types of ballots. So as people look at other people getting two, it's nothing to be concerned about. Or if you walk in, you're confused why you are getting two, it's because there is two elections going on the same day for everybody, or for the Republicans, I should say. So again, we're just trying to make sure that everybody understands that's
Right.
the task at hand, and we will be carrying it out. And the poll workers are getting used to it also. Like you mentioned earlier, poll workers have been handing out one ballot, one person forever, and now we're trying to incorporate a whole new way of allowing people to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other elements of this too, I think, the fact that we're at the end of summer now, August, a hard time for some people. I know you've mentioned you've had issues trying to get people to staff the polling sites. We see they're open today, they're functioning. People may be taking vacation, getting ready for back to school. Do you think those elements, Brian and Luce, are going to play into voter turnout today?
Absolutely. A lot of, like Brian was saying, a lot of people don't know about some people do. I mean, we sent out notices, but it's a little confusing on who they're voting for.
Absolutely. And of course, if they do have questions, best place to do that for our viewers. And imagine if you call the Board of Elections, you'll get somebody who can answer your questions.
We're fully staffed here at the Board of Elections. It's area code 716-753-4580. We have individuals, and ourselves included, that are answering the phone and answering questions. We will look you up, tell you what your party affiliation is, tell you where you vote, obviously help you along in the process of any questions you have. We also have sample ballots on our website, votechautauqua.com. So if you would like to look at them yourself to kind of see exactly what you would be voting for, they're available. And if you have any sort of other questions about your own personal status, votechautauqua.com is a great resource. But again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the board. We're staffed here today. We got people in the field. We have hundreds of election workers waiting to greet you and make sure that you're comfortable with the process.
All right. Again, Brian and Luce, thank you very much for joining me. Polls are open across the state until 9 o'clock tonight. Be sure to stick with us for more election coverage.